Alright guys, Scump again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Scump reveals quite some insight on his Call of Duty career. If he had to go back and potentially team with another player from an SMG perspective during his career, he had time with Karma, with Kremp, and most certainly towards the end of his career with Shotzzy as well. But there's one name that stands out, and maybe a name that could dramatically improve one of these rosters in the league next season after all sorts of drama in Rostermania so far. Some other drama as well we'll get into. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. We're going to start just here with a couple of things on Black Ops 7. So, well, Parasite made some comments on the flank about a playtester who gave some feedback on the way that the game currently looks. And to be fair, it's not like the feedback that was given, this is only from one individual anyway, was especially bad. The point can be around the maps, right? What things are looking like. I think the maps are always in CoD the key question, and in Black Ops 6, as we know, they failed to deliver expectations, right? You had the guy who designed Protocol saying that he'd modeled it on Raid, and I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, respectfully. So there weren't many great maps in Black Ops 6. I don't expect there's really any of them that people in several years are going to be saying, oh, I wish we'd had that one back in competitive. Unlike last year's game, where many of the DLC maps, especially, 6-star, Rio, Vista, all of those maps, were very well designed. And I think people would be pretty excited to see 6-star come back into Call of Duty at some point. Now, we know that BO7 is going to have some remasters. Raid, Express, Hijacked. I mean, look, Hijacked probably isn't going to be played in competitive, but Raid will be viable, you would think, for every mode. Uplink, we'll see, I guess. I mean, I'm sure it'll work. It's Raid. It is what it is. Control, we wonder whether Control would work when they brought that back for Black Ops Cold War, and it was the best Control map. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the, let's say, Uplink work pretty well for Raid. I do wonder, right, like, let's say you're on Raid. Let's say you're at the cut-up bit on Raid and you're trying to do a one-point throw. I'm just wondering, like, is it possible to intercept some of these throws? Because I think that there will be spots on some of these maps, if interceptions aren't possible, where people just go to spots, they do the one-point throw, and that is what it is. It's like, let's say you're in Zigzag on Raid. Could you just, like, chuck a one-pointer over to the portal? Like, will they be able to even stop that? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that Uplink actually plays well when the game comes out. But anyway, that's important based on the maps. We know that those maps are coming back. We know that, we think anyway, that Gridlock might be coming back from Black Ops 4. There were some rumors around that. The other maps, it is a bit of a question, right, as to whether they're going to be any good or not. Can Treyarch actually cook anything up that's any good? Is it just going to be Black Ops 7 or Black Ops 6 2.0?
Only places you'll be able to do it.
I don't want to be a pessimist in this way, but somebody that did play the game early told me some stuff about the game, and I will not say his name no matter what you tell me, because obviously NDAs. But I can tell you what they said, and you guys can interpret this how you want, or use it to either die down your expectations or maybe worry. So I'm going to read it out. So I had a great time in LA. I worry about the height and velocity of the wall jump. From the videos, you can see it's really springy, and the dexterity crutch perk kind of worries me too. But all of that can be balanced over time. Core gameplay and gunplay looks very BO6. So if they can lock down the maps, and this is where it worried me, still not convinced on this one yet. We're in for a good year. So I'm just hoping that the maps are good outside of the remakes. Yeah, that's what
I mean. The height thing on any wall mechanics. I mean, we dealt with this in PAX. Like,
the other thing that many of us OG COD fans would like to see changed again is a return to the way the classes are designed. There was lots of talk from the developers that, well, we're not sure we want to go back to pick 10 because we're not sure that it's really the best setup, which, I don't know, it's kind of tough for me to hear because, well, as JGod goes out and does, he's like, I mean, nowadays, the way you've got to design these classes, you've got to put all these attachments on, they all sound the same, and then you're like tuning the attachments based on what you want out of it. Like, I just don't understand how that is easier for, the lads and dads, as it were, than something like this, where you just say, all right, I'll throw my gun on, what do I want? A red dot sight, maybe I'll throw in a quick draw, maybe I'll put flak jacket on. I mean, it takes you a minute to build the class, if even that. And then you can copy and paste the classes. It just made so much sense. There's something so frustrating about modern COD, making the classes. Back in the day, it was fun. I even remember back in the day, I used to be in school, I'd have the Call of Duty Elite app on my phone. I could edit my classes on Black Ops 2 on my phone on the way home from school. Like, it was unbelievable. COD's gone so far backwards in the last decade and a half. The other drama was here from FaZe. So we know there's been plenty of chals going down over the last few days. People are playing Black Ops 3 chals, left, right, rhubarb, and, well, there's a bit of drama. So FaZe had a chal against TJ, and it seems that TJ... This happens all the time, so like it's not even, obviously it is on individuals here, and FaZe is specifically calling out Tej and Prolute for basically losing chals and then not paying him. But for some reason, this type of stuff just happens all the time. I don't really understand that when the players know this type of stuff is going to happen and people are going to get scammed, you've just got to play the chals on like CMG or some sort of middleman website where you can actually ensure that you're going to get your bread if you win. Because it just happens all the time here, right? And as FaZe tweets out yesterday, this actually gained more traction than the TJ one, scammed by Prolute, and you got this one. Obviously, they don't want to pay the fees of these middleman websites. I get it, right? But like, it does get you out of just getting scammed, because Byron is like, or this guy says, Cap can hold my 250 for the chal, you can send it to him. And then he says, you're not real, I was paired with FaZe anyways, you can tell him that I'm scamming. So these obviously aren't his direct DMs, but I mean, this happens, right? I don't really know why. It's just lots of these players, they just not trustworthy people, and you'll play a bit of chal, you'll win, and then they'll maybe come up with some sort of cheese as to why that win didn't count for some reason, and then they'll refuse to pay. And even if it was a perfectly legit win, they might just sometimes say, we're not paying him because of some other reason, and then all of a sudden the whole ecosystem kind of breaks down. So I don't know, FaZe was throwing out a couple here because of some of the drama over the last few days happening behind the scenes. We'll see if the money ever actually turns up in the bank account, right? But as I say, it's like just confuses me that this type of stuff happens all the time. You know it's going to happen a lot of the time, and then people still just keep going with it, and then the public pressure comes through. Now FaZe actually does say that there was meant to be a middleman holding his money. So because I think people are like, well, look, we know that Prolute does this sometimes, so there was meant to be a middleman holding the money. I think that's what they were talking about, right? Maybe about Capsidal or whatever, send it to him and then the middleman will sort it out. Maybe that's the way around using these, let's say CMG or something. Maybe that's the play. I don't know. I thought it was kind of fascinating, right? But this is grassroots Call of Duty stuff, for good or for real. The other thing I wanted to get into, though, was Scump and Formal. We talked earlier today about aBeZy and Simp, the duo ship that has now come to an end for them. The other, let's say, most legendary duo in CoD history. By the numbers, you might argue whether it's really the longest serving or the best or whatever, because Scump and Kremp were together for longer than Scump and Formal were. But it's always kind of felt like Scump and Formal were the real duo of that team, and for good reason, with the comms and the relationship and just the fact that it was like the primary AR, the primary SMG, it all worked out rather nicely. So they did this couples quiz, it was a nice bit of content, and there were a few interesting things that were said in here, especially Formal guessing who Scump's number one candidate would have been as an SMG partner, because as I said earlier today, really, in Scump's career, when he was playing at his top level, SMG duos weren't really a thing in the same way that they are today. Over the last few years, certainly from like Cold War and onwards, when it went back to 4 versus 4, there became this concept of the entry SMG and then the more like slaying SMG, right? On some teams, we never really saw that. But Simp and aBeZy was the example, because Simp and aBeZy was so dominant in, I mean, Cold War especially, but MW19, even Black Ops 4 as well. It started to be understood that, okay, maybe you need an incredibly fast, powerful entry sub and then like a slaying sub, and that was kind of their dynamic, and it worked very well. Back in Scump's day, that wasn't really a thing. I mean, you could look at maybe an aPeZy and a John in a similar regard, maybe. But, you know, maybe Zuma and Attach at times. But people were just really developing at that point how it was best to actually structure a team. Then with kind of, you know, back in Black Ops 2, there used to be a role called the Anchor, and that guy would just be an AR sitting all the way at the back of the map with a trophy system, holding down the spawns. And if we played BO2 today, that strategy would still be more viable than it is in current CoD. There's a reason why there was an anchor. But I definitely think that if we played BO2 again today, teams would realize that actually things back then were very static. People had their role. I am the objective player. I am the anchor. And that's how people played. Nowadays, people have recognized that that's not the most efficient way to play CoD. And you need to be able, you know, willing and able to potentially flex around where necessary. So people have learned that over time. And therefore today, if Scump was going to have an SMG duo as a teammate, then he would likely go for a different candidate.
What is my biggest in-game pet peeve? your biggest in-game pet peeve is not calling out where the guy went after I die to him.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, that's pretty standard.
Like they're not saying right or left, and you're just like in the dorms, like this guy's so good online. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you're just like, dude, and then you die to him, then you're like really mad.
Dude, give me a fucking direction.
Yeah. Like, oh, he's.
Because then I slide right, he's left. Now I look like the asshole. Now I'm getting cooked for you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, Seth's on Mars. That's a great answer. 10 points.
What is something you've learned from me?
I'd probably say the best thing that I've learned from you is your ability to be nonchalant when I wouldn't be nonchalant. Like, whenever something bad happens, you kind of like brush it off and you're like, fuck it, I'll go again. I kind of like compartmentalize it and like freak the fuck out about it, but you're like,
yeah,
you're very go with the flow and like, you're able to brush things off a lot easier than me, and you'll just like chalk it up to the game. You'll be like, well, that fucking happened, that sucks. What are you gonna do?
Yeah, I feel like I've always been really laid back, just like in general.
Yeah.
Like just just growing up in Southern California, like I don't know, a lot of my friends were similar to me, and then on top of that, like just kind of understanding, like I don't know, shit does happen.
happens.
Especially with what we do, like professional video games, like shit's happening all the time.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it goes horribly wrong. That was a good answer.
Yeah, probably say your ability to block out like the really shitty thing, not block it out, but like not harp on it. Yeah, like I do. Sit there in my fucking room and just think into oblivion.
Yeah.
Yeah, just in a dark room, just like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah, you got a lot of hate in your heart.
I wouldn't say hate, but it's more so.
It's hate, but you scored really high. You scored super high on the quiz.
I would have wanted to the most.
Probably aBeZy. Perfect sub for you. Like, just go in, fucking get one, get them weak, come in, get two. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, aBeZy's probably my number one. Well, people are always like, what about Simp? But like, me and Simp have such a similar playstyle.
Exactly, yeah.
I need like an aBeZy to.
You even start with S and end with P. Like, you know, you can't like be the same. Like.
Yeah.
S and P squared. Like.
Someone's got to go in.
Yeah, someone's got to go in. And aBeZy's going in every time, and he doesn't care about coming out. That's the thing.
He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, he'd be perfect for you, probably.
Yeah, aBeZy, 10 points.
So Scump team was Shotzzy, as we know, towards the end of his career, but as Formal correctly guessed, that if there had to be someone who Scump would team with again, or at least would have liked to team with, aBeZy would be kind of on paper the perfect candidate. I think this is what's interesting about this, is especially to do with the potential next team that aBeZy is on. Does it mean that Scump's going to come back and play with aBeZy? No. But does it mean that aBeZy as a sub-duo to a player like Scump is probably the man to get? Yeah, it probably does. And this is what's interesting about this potential aBeZy HyDra combination. There was never really a player like Scump in CoD history until HyDra's come along, really. Like, HyDra is, for example, HyDra and Kismet as a duo, they're not a Simp and aBeZy duo, like, when they had all their success. And yeah, HyDra and Envoy were a decent duo this year as well, but people probably look back at HyDra and Kismet, given, you know, the Priester and Skyzer on the team, and say they were good at the time, obviously, at MW2, but it was HyDra and Kismet were the powerhouse of that Modern Warfare 2 team that had all that success, and that was more of like a Scump Karma kind of duo than it was a Simp aBeZy type duo, where HyDra was basically the do-it-all sub. He would entry and he would get all the kills and everything, and then Kismet would do everything necessary to support that. aBeZy and Simp were a bit of a different duo, so I think it's interesting to see how aBeZy and HyDra might get on, because Scump is like, well damn, if I was, let's say, enabled by a guy like aBeZy, then I would just be able to slay so hard, and it would, you know, it'd be fantastic. Whereas, and maybe the similar thing could be true for HyDra. So we'll see, because, as I say, if there's any player in current CoD who is able to do what Scump used to do, HyDra's really the only guy I see who has that ability. Not to say that Simp doesn't either, but Simp just tends to play in a slightly different way to how Scump used to play, and HyDra's the only one who's been able to kind of replicate that a bit over the last few years. It'll be fascinating to see whether this really works out for Thieves, or whether there will be other things that get in the way. So tweet your thoughts in the comments. Just a final thing, which past CoD team had the best ever jersey? Here are some CoD jerseys for you all. Some of these pretty spectacular, not gonna lie. The OpTic 2017 one, highly rated. Cloud9 in 20... I mean, there were tons from that era. I mean, look at these jerseys. The most recent one we've got on here is 100T from 2019. Now, you could probably find examples in the CDL as well, but like back in the day, these jerseys were so unique and just absolutely fire. I always like the Splice one as well. You know, we've got Mind Freak. Even I'd have thrown Lightning Panners in here from like 2018 as well. But, you know, still, some of these are just legendary. And I mean, look, Black Ops 3 is just the best game. What can I say? Very much into your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.